issue. So, welcome to your Women's Fund. Welcome to your Impact Collaborative. Smart business, smart policies, smart kids. There is so much that we can do to make our economy stronger and better, and our experts here are going to help us. So, we need all of you attendees to lead as well and take really close notes, please. We need to spread this information with your networks. So I'm Maria, and I'm honored to welcome you here today. Couldn't do any of this without the beautiful, fantastic team. Some are on screen, some are not. Our elected officials, so many care about this. So many care very much about the pragmatic solutions that this group can bring to this issue. Our community partners who are day in and day out working with our families and our kids and our businesses. And we love you, founder Marilyn Gladstone. Thank you so much. This board, oh, look at that last name. Dr. Maria Ilcheva, our board chair, is here. In the audience, these leaders make your Women's Fund what it is today. Thank you all so much. And really extra, I'm sorry, go back, Danny. We got 4 brand new board members who I want to highlight today. Caroline Miller, Norma Savo, Helen Roldan, Julieta Moradai. Could not be more excited than to share brain power with you. Thank you so much for joining your Women's Fund Miami-Dade board. And now, off we go. Kaufman and Rawson, for many years, has been our economic mobility sponsor. They do empower women, they do empower our communities, and we could not do this work without them. So we thank them, and we thank you. Impact partners, large or small, these are the people who fuel your Women's Fund. Cannot do this without each and every one of you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And we have 4 pillars, and one of them is research and data and collective impact. And for a long time, people just thought, oh, kids are kids, and women are supposed to take care of kids, and it's the easiest thing in the world, the most natural thing in the world. And what data and science shows us is that not only is it really important what we do in the early years, but what we do in the early years really affects our economies. So we're going to give a special spotlight to Viviana Alvaro Pacheco to give us the facts behind much of what we know. Viv.
Thank you, Maria. Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. As Maria mentioned, my name is Viviana Alvarado Pacheco. I am the Senior Director of Research and Collective Impact here at Your Women's Fund. And this morning, I have the absolute honor of taking you through our latest research report, A Powerful Business Case for Early Learning in Childcare, where we discuss the economic and business benefits of providing childcare benefits to your employees, and really coming in with some of the really core data that is needed in order to make a powerful case. So I'm going to go through. I'm going to throw a lot of data. I'm going to throw a lot of facts. If you don't remember any of what I say, that is okay, because it's on the report. So you can just go in there and you can read it for yourself. Also, my lighting is a little weird, so I apologize. So let's start off with 68% of Florida children live in households where all parents work. That's 23 million Floridians that have working parents. 64 of those Florida parents are affected by childcare issues in the workplace. And it's important to note that childcare costs exceed in-state college tuition by $8,402 annually, right? I like to throw out these numbers for us to sit with them for a minute, because that is huge. You have childcare costs that are more than in-state college tuition in Florida. Infant care expenses are also equivalent to 2/3 of the annual cost of rent for families. Next slide, Danny, please. Especially because on average, the annual cost of infant care in Miami-Dade County is $13,560. That's $1,130 per month. That, I mean, you can see where that's almost as much as rent, right? Or as much as a mortgage on a monthly basis. So we're talking about elevated costs for childcare where a lot of families can just like not afford to go to have their children in an early learning center because it's very unaffordable. Childcare costs as a share of household income. Go back a little bit, Danny. Thank you. Just for you to kind of understand of where they lie. It's 18% of the median income and 42% of the federal poverty line. And based on our Miami-Dade self-sufficiency standard, which Danny is going to drop the link in the chat for so you can play around with it and learn more about it. But a parent earning minimum wage in Miami-Dade County would need to work 149 hours per week in order to meet that family's basic needs, right? So we're adding in the excessive amount of childcare and what it means for that family and how just somebody working minimum wage, I mean, 149 hours per week, that's not feasible, right? Thanks, Danny. Next slide. So we're looking also at, in the report, we're highlighting economic losses. It's important for us to really highlight how much our local and our Florida economy loses yearly on by not offering more affordable and more accessible childcare benefits. We're looking at an annual loss per working parent due to turnover and absenteeism at $1,640. And it costs the employers roughly 1/5 of an employee's annual salary to replace them, right? So when you have parents that are leaving the workforce or you're having them be absent, those are costs that businesses take on themselves and also costs that it is amplified when you have to replace these employees. Miami-Dade County is looking at an economic loss of $931 million. That's almost $1 billion for our economy, where Florida loses $5.38 billion. And nationally, we're looking at $122 billion in economic losses due to the childcare crisis. It's important to note that investing in childcare could lead to $11 billion in new economic activity in Florida. That's huge, right? So that's why it's also super important to keep this in mind. If childcare costs were capped at 7% of the household income, per the Department of Health and Human Services recommendation, it would enable 70,453 more parents to join the workforce. And that's also important for us as your Women's Fund because oftentimes the parents that are leaving the workforce are women, right? So we want to bring women back into the workforce. We want to have them be part of the economic engine. It saves family also with an infant around $6,554 on childcare costs and frees up about 8% of that family's annual household budget. It's important to highlight also that there are employer childcare tax credits that your businesses can take advantage of already. There at the federal level, we have what's called 45F, which is the employer provided childcare credit. And in Florida, we have the Child Care Tax Credit Program. These are also tax credit programs that have been beefed up. They have a little bit more money, so businesses can really take advantage of these child care tax benefits and provide child care benefits to their employees. There's a QR code right there, so you can scan. Also, the links are going to be in the chat for you all to go a little deeper into our report. And I will highlight also that the report has an appendix section where we go more in depth into what is the SHE session, looking at early learning 101 in Miami-Dade County, what is the federal funding for early childhood learning, how does it work, And also, we talk about childcare owners and staff. And that's kind of all the sectors that we have on this panel today. So that's exciting. And if you want to learn more, they're just one pagers. We also have this wonderful Miami Herald article that highlights the report and where you can learn a lot more about how this is affecting real families in our community. And now I am going to throw it back to you, Maria. Thank you so much.
Well, you know what? I want everybody to notice, sit up straight. This is important work. We have the attention. This was a lead article in the Miami Herald. Why? Because it's impacting all of us, whether you have kids or not, whether you have a business or not. This is affecting your economy, and it's pretty exciting. We're also important. Well, let me go one by one, and let me just say that the Senate is in session. That Senator Alexis Calatayud recorded this keynote for us and this welcome for us because, once again, like if you didn't hear me the first time, this issue is important. We are important. Let's listen to what the senator has to say.
Miami-Dade for your leadership, your research, and your unwavering commitment to women, families, and our future. I'm honored to be with you today, not only as a Florida State Senator, but as a lifelong Miami-Dade resident, someone whose work has always centered on one core belief. Economic mobility begins with opportunity, and opportunity begins early. Today's conversation is about early learning. But let's be clear from the start. Early learning is not a side issue. It's not a family issue. It's not a luxury. Early learning is essential to economic infrastructure. When families cannot access affordable, reliable childcare, businesses lose workers, productivity suffers, and our entire local economy pays the price. That's not theoretical. That's lost wages, lost growth, lost potential. In Florida, nearly 7 in 10 children live in households where all parents are working. And yet, childcare costs have far outpaced wages, especially here in Miami-Dade, where the cost of caring for a single infant can consume 20% of a household's income. For families already on the margins, it's even more challenging. It requires public-private partnership, business leadership, and community engagement, exactly the coalition represented in this room. This is where leadership matters. I see every day how early learning connects to long-term economic mobility, from workforce readiness to upward progress. So today, my call to action is simple. If you're a business leader, you must partner with us in seeing childcare as an investment, not a cost. If you're an advocate or a policymaker, push together for solutions that meet families exactly where they are. If you're part of a philanthropic or nonprofit organization, drive the research, partnerships, and accountability that move us forward. And to everyone here today, remember, you are not observers in this conversation. You are architects of change. Miami-Dade has always been and will always be a place of resilience, grit, innovation, and impossible possibility. We will lead, not just in economic growth for the state, but in showing what it takes, what it looks like to truly support working families and their children. Thank you.
And thank you, Senator Calatayud. I promised her that I'm going to send her this recording. So just know that we are being heard, and we'll actually be seeing the Senator, Viviana, and I next week in Tallahassee, taking what we gleaned from you all today to our leaders who all work for us. We all do well to remember that. So we're excited to have people who are focused and really knowledgeable about this topic. I'm going to ask you each and all to participate in not only in the polls. There will be 3 polls that are conducted throughout this webinar. It helps us to not only serve you better as the Women's Fund, but you're going to see later, this is going to help us to connect you directly with some of our panelists and our leaders. We are here at the Women's Fund to leverage collective impact to weave a stronger community. It doesn't have to be through us. Maybe you meet Moms First or Empowering Early Learning Educators or the folks from that you want to say hi to at JW Marriott next time you come through and learn from when you're at one of the chamber events. But you don't have to come through us. We're here to make sure that you're all working together, that we're all working together for a greater Miami-Dade. So please connect, please use the chat, and please do the survey afterwards because it helps us to show our impact. So please do. And now I'm going to be quiet and let each of our panelists do the absolutely impossible thing of introducing themselves in 2 minutes or less. And the only reason they can do it is because they're just telling you who they are in context of today's topics. Galina, welcome, and thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Galina Ucheva. I'm the Director of Human Resources at the JW Marriott Marquis in downtown Miami. I am here because I have followed the work of the Women's Fund and the Children's Trust, and I've also have been honored to be part of the YWCA Economic Justice Council, where I've seen those conversations. I've been part of it. I've recognized a lot of those numbers that Vivi shared with us just now. Because obviously the cost of turnover, those are real problems. And I know that part of why I might lose employees is early learning, right? And the support that parents receive. So I definitely, am interested in supporting my employees better, in supporting their kids better, because that's also my future workforce. And, I think together as a community, if we get together, we could definitely do more than what just one person could do. So that is why I'm here.
And we're so glad you are. Meredith, welcome.
Hi, everyone. I am so honored to be here with you today, and thank you so much to Women's Fund of Miami-Dade for having me. I am the Director of Private Sector Strategy at Moms First. We are a national nonprofit out there fighting for America's moms. And we know that paid family leave and affordable, accessible childcare are a huge piece of granting equity to women and economic mobility. So we do that through 4 main pillars. One is mobilizing business, which is my role, and I'll talk to you a little bit more about today. We also drive innovation. We have a tool, paidleave.ai.com, paidleave.ai, that helps people access paid leave benefits. We do a lot of culture change, and we also have a grassroots movement that I'd love to invite you all to follow at the end of this call. But really, our mission is moving forward those 2 main pillars of affordable, accessible childcare and paid family leave. And we recognize that a lot of times these issues don't move unless business is on board. And to that end, what so many people have already mentioned on this call is affordable childcare is not just a family's problem to solve. It is an economic imperative. And when we start to think about it through that lens, employers take notice and government and policymakers take notice. So we've really done a lot of work to frame it within that context. We've done some research, like the report featured here with Boston Consulting Group from the employer point of view. And I'll talk you through a couple of those things on the call today.
Let me just say, Moms First is fuego, mi gente. Moms First is a national organization. They are on fire. They have so much valid information for us, so much relevant information. I encourage you each and all to follow them on this issue and more, because we really are stronger together, and we don't have to do it all alone. We've got a very powerful national organization with you here in Miami-Dade today. So thank you, Meredith, for representing. Really appreciate it. And talk about more talent and amazing colleagues and partners in action. Welcome, Dr. April Mosley.
Good morning, everyone. First of all, thank you for having me to be a part of this. I am so honored and grateful to be able to speak along this topic. I've been across the entire educational landscape, Starting out as a teacher's assistant, I was a teacher, assistant principal, a principal of a private school, childcare owner, a consultant, and also I'm the vice chair of ELE, which is the Early Empowering Educators. And I'm an advocate for children and also a champion for childcare leaders. And then a voice for parents, because I've been them all. I've been every one of those things. And I've seen this issue firsthand. So I believe that I can confidently speak to the need of partnerships in childcare. I was consulting one day and I heard I heard a leader in the childcare business say to one of her teachers who did not have childcare, she said, "I'm sorry, but that's not my problem. You need to come to work." And I paused in that moment because immediately I said to myself, no, that's everyone's problem. She could not come to work because she did not have childcare. And so from the Fortune 500 companies to the mom and pops, childcare is everyone's issue. And until we understand that, this will either be a strategy for the industry or bleed. So thank you for having me.
Thank you each and all for being here. And thank you each and all here in the audience. Look at that chat. This is a very exciting place to be. Let's share, share, share. We're going to get a lot out of today. What do we need to know? What are you seeing, Galina, in your sector?
In my sector, I see that a lot of female parents are needing to make hard choices, whether they focus on career or they need to leave and be stay-at-home moms because simply childcare is so expensive that they cannot have it all, right? And I vouch that that shouldn't be the case, right? Just recently, about 3 months ago, I had to lose an associate because she has 2 young children and she couldn't figure out how to balance it all and the affordability of childcare. Even though I might be able to provide flexible schedule, I can only be flexible to a point. We noticed that parents have to be absent or be tardy because of school drop-offs, daycare issues. Sometimes kids get sick, so the parents need to stay home. So a lot of that, I noticed that our parents require a little bit more support. And the cost of turnover that Vivi was speaking of, I see it firsthand. With us, we evaluate that it's about 7,000 on the kind of lower scale, and obviously the higher the position, the higher the cost of turnover is. So it hits the businesses as well. I definitely think is everybody's job, including us as a business, the community, all the great people that are part of this conversation to do something about it. And I'm lucky to be part of a company that's willing to dig through, right? So
I want to say, although there are no men on this panel today and on this screen today, we have a vast number of allies, fantastic allies, colleagues of Galina's. We have leaders of all of the chambers of commerce, but Alfred Sanchez, especially from the Greater Miami Chamber, is a huge ally here. So I want to encourage us each and all to reach out to our male colleagues and friends and make sure that they feel and bring protagonism to this conversation as well. Meredith, what are you seeing? Give us a big picture.
Great. So I think all I can do is echo Galina's comments. I think that what we really focus on at Moms First is moving the conversation from childcare is a personal problem to solve to childcare is an economic imperative. And when we first started working with businesses, we were saying, hey, we think that you should invest in childcare, not only because it's the right thing to do, but because it's really good for your business. And we were going into C-suite, boardrooms, and executives were saying, yeah, I hear you, like this makes sense. However, I just can't afford it. There isn't the money. And I worked in internal social impact and sustainability roles in the private sector before this one, and I've had that conversation a million times. It's always hard to carve out that money for something that hasn't been proven or something that is outside of the day-to-day, business operations. And so with that, we connected with Boston Consulting Group and put together this landmark report, basically saying, we know that there is an ROI to this investment. It is not a cost center. It is something that will truly pay you back over time. So we worked with 5 brands, big national brands, and I like to note all different industries, all different geographies, all different workforce types, to look at their childcare programs and develop a unique calculator that could evaluate absenteeism, retention, and productivity to really give us a hard fact and a hard figure for the return on investment. And in working with these 5 companies, which you'll see here on the slide, Fast Retailing, which is the owner of Theory, Uniqlo, and other brands, Etsy, Synchrony Bank, UPS, and Steamboat Ski Resort in Colorado, we evaluated their programs and we found that within these just 5 programs alone, up to 425% return on investment for every dollar spent on childcare initiatives. And I always like to caveat as well that, 420 up to 425%, you think, oh, well, one company had a great ROI and the rest were, probably, single digits. No, the lowest ROI we found here was 90%, which is all just a really staggering figure and a huge case maker for investing in childcare benefits as a workforce imperative. And you'll see these stats on the breakdown of those different pillars I mentioned. So up to 86% of working parents, oh, sorry, could you go back really quickly? Are more likely to stay with their employer. Up to 78% have positive career impacts. Up to 16 absences avoided each year. And I will say that in many cases, that number was surpassed by some of these examples. And then just a really clear indicator that job satisfaction increases when employees have access to these types of benefits. You can go to the next slide. So all in all, that was a real case maker that there is true ROI here up to 425%. And this is a problem that employers and economic leaders and policymakers cannot afford to ignore. Next slide. So just kind of breaking these things down, we did case studies with individual employees at each company, and we had intimate conversations about how these plans were built, how they were deployed, and kind of the why behind these employees. And one employer, UPS, tells a really great story. They have a lot of frontline workers, and they have a lot of workers that they might be on strict policies. You miss work 3 times, 3 strikes, you're out of the workforce. And around the time, a little bit post-COVID, as things were really in flux with childcare centers reopening, but parents needing to be back at work, and all of the day-to-day events that any parent on this call knows all too well, they were having a lot of call outs, and they were seeing really, really high potential employees fall out of the workforce because they were met against these policies, and absences were not something that they could avoid based on the childcare failures in our current system. And so they did a little research. They dug around with employees, and they found that when they put in place a backup care program on site, they were able to avoid absences. And there's actually one really beautiful example of a person who grew into a manager position. She was a high potential employee. She had struggled with childcare. She was on the verge of being fired. And because she had the support from her company to take care of childcare, she was able to show up for work, and she was able to be promoted into a role that increased her economic mobility in the way that she could provide for her family. Next slide. So yeah, as we think about the ways that childcare really strengthens culture and finance, these are all issues that anyone in HR, Galena, you can back me up, deals with every day. You're able to come to work, but you're not able to focus. You don't know, what's going on with kind of maybe you ask your friend to watch your child because something fell through, and you hope that, things are going okay. You can't focus on your job. you can't grow in your job. You're unhappy in your job because, the pieces aren't fitting together and the structural systems aren't there to support you. Or at the very highest cost center, recruitment and retention, you can't find who you want to fill these roles, and the employees are leaving because, as you mentioned, they're facing a really, really tough decision, an unbelievable choice about whether they stay in the workforce, whether they fuel their career growth and find that economic mobility, or they maybe choose for many reasons to stay at home. But the key point that Moms First really focuses on is we want women to have a choice. Do they want a career, and do they need the income, and what factors go into that? Or are they pushed to the sidelines because childcare is just not something that they can access or afford? And so, with that, I'll kind of pass it along. But these are the problems we're seeing, and these are the ways that companies can think about them to really empower the conversation to move forward and move forward with these women.
We care about a lot of things at Your Women's Fund, but let there be no doubt, lack of access to affordable, high quality early learning education, aka childcare, is a massive impediment to women's economic mobility and long-term financial security. And we know that when women are financially secure, entire families and entire economies are financially secure. So if anybody has any questions, we have the facts to back it up. So we care about everybody, but first and foremost, let's say here today, we're here to back women and women and girls, and there's a lot that we can do about it. April.
Thank you again. Let me kind of sound an alarm here. Child development is a key issue when childcare is interrupted. And I'm not sure if everyone is aware that the brain development, when it's disrupted in children, it's a problem that will last for a very long time. The first 5 years, the brain develops with children in early learning. And so with inconsistent childcare, this becomes a problem. Their neural connectors are affected. Brain development is slowed. It affects their social and emotional. And so we need to be aware that in the early industry childcare, that children need their social emotional skills. This is where they develop trust and empathy. This is how they develop healthy relationships. Frequent caregiver changes affects that. And so we need to be aware of that. Also, sometimes inconsistent childcare shows up in behavior concerns. Oftentimes, we think that children have behavior problems, but the issue is they haven't had consistent childcare. And so in this industry, it is important for us to realize that childcare and the lack of it can affect children's behavior. And then language and communication is also an issue when childcare is interrupted. Kids that have limited engagement with their children or early care will have issues with speaking if it is not reinforced at home. And so oftentimes parents who are working cannot reinforce communication skills, or they're not equipped to handle communication gaps. And so that's why early care is important in early learning. The hard truth is we spend more time fixing what we could have built early. And so early learning is where the need is in order to attack a problem that will affect every industry. And so I think it's time to level the playing field. Childcare will rebuild when it's time for school readiness, those kids who had a level playing field are those who did not have support at all. And so I just want to leave you with that thought. It is important that we know that preparing kids early will affect their social emotional skills. It will affect their brain development. It will affect how they communicate. And so this becomes an early learning issue that will develop into a school readiness concern.
I always say your focus is our power. We're more important to focus on our beloved children's brains. And if you only speak one language and it's the professional and the workforce language, that applies to you too, because this is our future workforce in the making, right? So Galina, your focus is our power. Focus us on business and early child learning.
Well, you know what I realized is you couldn't have put me in a better panel than this. I very much loved what Meredith said. I very much loved what April said. I echo what they're saying, right? It is everyone's business, and I think as an employer, I want to make it our business. My focus is to I guess to pave the way and provide that support to our associates. We just recently, about a year and a half ago, connected with our friends from the children's movement, and we became bosses for babies. And obviously, through my involvement with the different organizations, I started looking at other ways that we could support our associates. I saw one of the people that commented in the comments, Erica Earl, shout out to you. I don't want another associate to quit because they have to make a choice like that, right? I think we all have to pull together to support working parents through flexible schedules, right? We're supporting through that. We're trying to provide more part-time opportunities where the parents could balance both. So you could have the career and you could have the child care. We did educational classes for our associates, thanks to the Children's Movement and Early Learning Coalition, where experts in the field were explaining to our associates the importance of 0 to 5. And then through that, I have a dream moment is to start supporting even on, I guess, the affordability of quality childcare through applying through the Florida child care tax credit. Because obviously a business needs to be in the mix in order for that tax credit to be utilized and the saving to be passed on to our associates. I have big dreams, and I think it is important for all the businesses to get involved because childcare is here to stay. Our kids need to be taken care of. So we all have to do our part in the process. The teachers need to teach, right? The organizations need to focus on policies. The employers need to support with whatever they could support. And I feel I'm lucky enough to work for a company that wants to pave the way, kind of dig through the tons of information that's out there and see how we could make it work with out of the box benefits, as I call them, because I also have a dream to have a childcare on site. I know this is far, far away from me, but at least through tax credit, I think we could do something. Importance of quality childcare. I think all of the people in this conversation are very in tune with, because those 0 to 5 brains, right? We need to give them that knowledge. We need to give them that quality education. We need to make it affordable for them. And one of the ways is I think we all pull together and support each other. The group here and other businesses obviously get in the mix. I know the chambers are very in tune, so all of us could do something together. I definitely am focused on that and working towards employer solutions where we could support those working parents.
Well, your Women's Fund promise to you, Galina, and to all of your colleagues all across this Miami-Dade and South Florida business ecosystem is that we're here to support and help untangle some of the complexities, right? So leaders like you can help show other people how to do it. But we understand we need a little bit of support. I want everybody to know that we have quite a few folks in our audience with us today who are either elected leaders, have been, will be, people who work in policy, people who are supporting our civil sector and our governmental sectors. We want you all to know that not only does Meredith have the Boston Consulting Group amazing study, but as if you've missed it before, Viviana and we have some great reports for you that bring it local, showing that almost $1 billion is lost to our local economy due to lack of access to quality early child learning. So please know that we have data for you. And then we have folks like Dr. April and others who are part of a speakers bureau from Empowering Early Learning Educators. So when you need the real voices of the real people who are taking care of our kids and who are running these essential small businesses, we have those connections for you as well. So with support from the Children's Trust and the Children's Movement, South Florida, and others, we've got a lot of resources for you. So please do not hesitate. And I'll ask the team to just keep on posting here how they can get a hold of us, how you can all get a hold of us, because I have a feeling a lot of action is going to come out of today. And we want to make sure that we make that easy for you. So on to you next, Meredith. Give us a fishing pole.
Yeah, so I kind of echo there's so many great points on this call. And, we've all talked about what it might be like to live in an ideal world where employers are really standing behind childcare efforts and understanding that it's a piece of the pie that they can gain on as well. But what does that really look like? And so, I think that to your point about data, understanding where companies are actually seeing upside and can see that return on investment, what it means in tangible financial terms, has been really important to pushing this conversation forward. And it's pushing the conversation forward with employers, but it's also really moving things forward with policymakers and advocates. And so when we see the business community stand behind childcare and say, hey, this is important to our economy, this is important to our workforce, that's when we really see a lot of movement from policymakers. And so I'll give you just a couple of examples, but Moms First held a Hill Day in Washington, D.C. last year. We brought over 50 employers to the Hill to talk about childcare, which we were advocating for some investments to expand the CDCTC, which is the individual tax credit for families, to apply for childcare reimbursement, the 45F provision that was already mentioned so that businesses can see tax incentives in their investment, and DCAP, which you might know of as kind of like a dependent care FSA account. And so when we were going to the Hill and having these conversations, policymakers on both sides of the aisle in the House and the Senate said to us, I've never had an employer here talking to us about childcare. It was a light bulb moment for us that, advocacy groups will stand behind these platforms and lots of different really, really important players. But hearing from business really, perked their ears up and said, oh, from an economic point of view, I have to do what the businesses want me to do. And now I can see that they want this investment in childcare because they see the true value to their workforce. So I say that to say this is really an investment, not only in the private sector, but also in the public sector. And when we see that public-private partnership, we see huge results. One other example I'll share with you is just at the beginning of the year, some of you might have seen that Governor Kathy Hochul in New York introduced a plan to universal childcare, which expands universal care for 2-year-olds in New York City and expands to 4-year-old care throughout the state, whereas before it had been a little pocketed. And we really believe that the business influence there was a key motivator, giving her permission to take on this kind of bold and not very well accepted policy today. And we saw that through leaders writing op-eds on the business case for childcare and their support, calling, policymakers to action, to stand with them in unity, knowing that this is not just a private sector initiative and it's not just a public sector initiative. We're not going to get there without collaboration from both and acknowledgement from both that childcare is an economic and a workforce imperative. So with that, I just say data is really important. We did create this really cool tool to measure companies' return on investment. That's a huge stat that goes a long way when we talk to these types of policymakers. And to answer some of the questions in the chat, I think it was John asked, how can we do this? And I'm going to drop a link in the chat to a roadmap we made for companies that are thinking about investing in childcare benefits, what to consider, who to contact, what it looks like every step of the process. Because it really is something that is advantageous to businesses. And we're continuing to dig and dig and dig into this data. We have the BCG report here. You see that outlined of make the investment, share it, and then advocate for change, which I just spoke to. But we're not done. And so, what you're saying, John, music to my ears. Workforce and production and hospitality. Our next report will come out at the end of Q1 this year, focused on frontline workers. We know that frontline workers are particularly disadvantaged by the childcare crisis because they work hours that are outside of the traditional care structure. They are often found in childcare deserts, and they also don't have the same access to benefits as maybe their corporate employees. So, in addition to the resource, I'll also drop a link to our mailing list so that when that report comes out in just 2 months, you all can read that and see the true data behind financial loss for frontline dominant industries, because that's the next huge piece that we need to move forward.
That is terrific. And the team knows that we're going to be asking you, Meredith, to try and help us to extrapolate that data to be Miami-Dade specific, because it knocks people over the head. Sometimes people get a little glazed over what's a national. They shouldn't, right? We should be impressed, but if we can dig it even deeper and we can extrapolate like to what we did with the business losses here of $931,600,000 per annum in Miami-Dade. We'll add to that punch. It's so exciting to be able to be in close collaboration with you all nationally. It's beyond exciting. And we know that what makes data stick is having people's stories to back them up. So we add these 2 and 2 together. April, you are hands-on. Tell us, what can we do?
Yes. So as a hands-on owner, I want to, first of all, my co-panelists have shared some scary data with us. And so it's scary because this is a conversation that is long overdue. And I want to add something to that. Childcare owners are key players in the community ecosystem. And I think it's time for us to be aware of that. We are the ones that take care of the future, and we are the ones that take care of the people who are shaping the future. And so when the industry is unstabilized, that this is a problem in every child care center. And so providers need support. We need support because our staff is burned out because of lack of funding to the industry. It's hard to pay sometimes a healthy wage, or it's hard to recruit teachers to the industry because the money or the funding isn't there for their own childcare needs. And so providers are burnt out. Our childcare workers are burnt out. Our staff, they need support in their own homes. They need support with their own children. And so when the needs are not met for them, there is lack of productivity in our industry. And so we need to be aware that in order for us to stabilize our communities, we need to take care of the people who is not only shaping the community, but who will be leaders and forerunners and thought leaders and thinkers of our community. And so childcare centers are closing every day because of lack of funding, or because parents are not bringing kids to school. They can't afford to. This is a cost that sometimes it exceeds their rent. And so we need to be mindful when we have this conversation and we're discussing childcare that it is a problem, again, for not only Fortune 500 companies, but also for the mom and pops. We are shaping the future, and we are also taking care of the future. And so we need support to do that, in terms of not only funding to the industry, but partnerships as well. And also connectors and connections that can help advance the early learning community.
Never better said. That is the truth. We have quite a few questions coming to me from different angles. Thank you so much, Meredith, for answering that first one. The Women's Fund has 4 pillars, and today we're talking about economic mobility, but one of our key pillars is freedom from violence. And Commissioner Fabiola Stuyvesant has messaged us here saying that this vulnerability spans all socioeconomic levels. When low-income women are often trapped by the prohibitive cost of care, wealthier women frequently face complex financial abuse where partners control family assets or pressure them to leave high-earning careers. Ultimately, without independent childcare and the income it enables, women of every background can be stripped of the practical means to walk away. So there is a lot of data that we have, but there's a lot of data we don't, because a lot of these issues are invisible. And we thank you so much, Commissioner, for helping us bring it to light. I don't know if Moms First has any kind of insights on this, on how it's important for women independence in many ways. I'll pitch this one to you then, Meredith.
Yeah, I think maybe it just is helpful to share a little bit about why Moms First was founded. We're founded by Reshma Saljani, who is the founder and former CEO of Girls Who Code, a women's equity initiative to help girls get more involved in the tech industry, coding, and some of the careers that have long not been accessible to them. And that was a wonderful organization, made a lot of impact in gender equity. But then the pandemic hit, and our founder, Reshma, had a young child, and she was seeing how all of these women were being driven out of the workforce due to the broken care system. And it really impacted kind of some of those former women, those women who were in the former role of her life, that these women had learned to code, they had a great career trajectory, and they were going on to college, but they were having to drop out of college to support the care needs in their homes because women of all generations were being pulled out of the workforce. And Reshma really had this light bulb moment that gender equity will never be realized if we don't support the moms. The structures in this country that do not support paid leave, do not support childcare, and pull women back are still alive and well, and we have to break down that structure and reimagine it a new way. And so, that always sticks with me. We'll never truly reach gender equity if we don't support the moms. And I think that speaks so much, to a lot of different angles, but the financial angle absolutely is at the top of the list, that so many women are trapped by caregiving responsibilities and not able to reach their economic potential or financial independence.
So I know that our virtual crowd goes wild, and you're getting a lot of applause and cheers with that, because we know this to be true. But we believe that we're starting to reach a more critical mass of folks and allies who are really starting to understand this better. Now more people are starting to understand that this is happening, but there is a numbness and an overwhelm on what can we do about it. So Galina, what just kind of briefly, what impediments have you seen to have for employers to be able to wrap their brains around this? And what do you think you need? Just give us a couple of bullet points on each.
I think it's always about the finance, right? One point is definitely the financial impact that's going to have on the business. And I think the report that the Women's Fund just published is very helpful to show the other side, right? What's the cost if you don't do anything about it? So I definitely applaud you for that. I think the other kind of what stops us from doing more is because employers, in a way, lack the information that is actionable and a quick plug and play, right? My forte is obviously human resources. My forte is hospitality. I know how all of this works in the building. I don't know how to navigate the Florida tax credit. I don't know how to navigate the different organizations that could support me as an employer or my associates from the other side. So this, like, one book that I could read that could teach me all will be very beneficial to me as an employer, right? And I think if employers have that access to all the information in one place, it will allow us to be more actionable or have more action-oriented approach versus, oh my God, it's too much time for me to try to figure out what I can do. And then I just quit before I start. Very few people have the time to do the research on their own. And, I kind of am one of the lucky ones that I dig through the information and try to make it work. but those are my top two.
Well, everybody needs to know that your Women's Fund is working on it more than anything, and in service to putting together all the great brains that are around the Children's Trust, the Early Learning Coalition. Keep on mentoring our amazing partners who are here from Children's Movement, South Florida. There are a lot of folks who really care about this. And it's kind of easy when you're a layperson to look back and see all these brilliant people working together and find the gaps and needs, because your Women's Fund is in the gaps and needs business. And how can we help put this together so we can all understand and make it fluid? Because I do think that most people care. I believe most employers care, but I know there are a lot of things that I care about that I don't get time to do in a day or a week or a month or even a year. And so I'm really grateful for those who facilitate making what I want to do right easier to do right. And that includes supporting our early learning educators. April, what do you need most? And what is Empowering Early Learning Educators doing to help?
I think being advocates, early learning educators, we are advocates for, again, not only for children, but for our industry. And it's time for us to stop thinking about childcare in isolation. We are essential employees who should be considered in the benefits package, right? We're offered health benefits, we're offered vacation, dental, but no one is offering childcare, which is a critical part of your business. And so we need to be a part of the conversation. We need to be considered when the benefits packages are being constructed. And we need to understand that childcare is the infrastructure that holds families together. It is the infrastructure that holds the workforce together. It is the infrastructure that holds communities together. And so I think as the vice chair, who is committed to this cause with such amazing partners that I'm working alongside, we understand that without a healthy childcare industry, that there's going to be great turnover. And so we need partnerships. We need businesses to start thinking about partnering with childcare to offer stipends to your employees. Okay, we need partnerships with contracts. We need centers to contract with your organizations to provide subsidies. We need additional funding to parents through our legislator to provide funding so that they can bring the kids to school. And so again, this is a conversation that should take place, but not in isolation. Again, to benefits. We need to be a part of our benefits package. We need to, just like we're offering vacation, just like we're offering health and medical and dental and all and vision, childcare needs to be a part of that conversation.
Oh, yes.
Partnerships needs to happen.
Oh,
and
yes.
so
I'm taking a note to it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And so
April, I cannot echo enough. I mean,
Dr. Mosley.
childcare is infrastructure.
it is infrastructure. And so we can no longer think of it in terms of isolation. It is infrastructure, not isolated.
So excited to respond to Gloria Romero Roses that Women's Fund is applying for additional funding to further all potential pilots. We're also talking to other people who care and fund and are interested in this, because we never care. It's not just about us. It's about leveraging resources on behalf of the community. So the Women's Fund is doing our part and trying to weave some of these things together. It's pretty exciting tech and innovations and people caring together. So hopefully by working with the chambers, by working with government, by working with civil society and the business community, we will be able to do some piloting and prove to people, work out some kinks, and show that this can be done. I want to give another shout out to one of our grantee partners. Robin Perlman is here from the Business Learning Institute. And she always says, it's not that there isn't money in the early child learning and the childcare industries. There's actually quite a bit, but it's really, I mean, if anybody remembers Kafka's Castle, it's pretty convoluted and it's not simple. And we need to rejig and re-engineer a lot of this flow. So it's very exciting to know that we're not just talking about problems here. We're talking about a lot of solutions, and we're seeing a lot of very powerful people here on screen, here in the audience, and with massive networks behind who care about this. I always like to say that it's great to see when the fruit is ripening and we think it's ready to pick. And I think the time is now to remove these barriers to women's economic mobility, to increase outcomes for all of our children's life learning capacity, which includes how we feel the workforce, and we're able to work stronger together. Cannot thank our panelists anymore for being here, but especially let me thank those of you who attend these monthly impact collaboratives, what you need to know and what you can do to support women and girls in our community and rising our whole community when you take this gender lens focus. Next time, we're going to be talking from risk to resilience, maternal health, hypertension insights. Again, this is everybody's business. And we're going to show you why. So just show up. You might not be pregnant and you might not even know somebody who is right now, but boy, the information that we're going to give you will affect your workforce, will affect your community, will affect budgets. So join us again. And if you want to join us, Power of the Purse is so much fun. Our silent auction goes live on February 13th, because that's exactly 1 month before Power of the Purse itself. So, we're going to sell out. You can come at least via the silent auction. So you just please sign up for our e-blast and make sure that you stay in this community of your Women's Fund Miami-Dade, because together we go further, much faster. And how can you do that? We're organized, and you can join #OneTeam to support our network of civil engagement in stopping sex trafficking. Prevention is everything. And once again, just like early child learning, just like maternal health, human trafficking affects us all. Sex trafficking, labor trafficking. And if you can sign up your organizations to #OneTeam, go back to that other slide, please, Danny. That's what I want to focus on now. On our website, you can join #OneTeam, whether it's the PTA or your organization or you as an individual. Please help us share those messages all together across our community. Thank you each and all. Have a wonderful, productive day. Thank you, everyone.